The brother of the late Virginia Giuffre is calling for an investigation into Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, who was stripped of his royal titles by his brother, King Charles. Virginia Giuffre took her life earlier this year. In her memoirs, she gave more details about the allegations that she was abducted and slept with Andrew when she was 17. Andrew has denied the allegations. Sky News spoke with her brother, Sky Roberts, and his wife, who have welcomed the royal family's decision and are asking the King to pressure the United States President, Donald Trump, into releasing the Epstein files.
We've had kind of mixed emotions. I think a lot of celebratory moments, but also really sad moments because she's not here with us. She should be sitting on this camera with you right now, celebrating this, but also demanding more justice, right? So I think it's a mixed bag of emotions over the last 24 hours, but we are just hell-bent to not let her voice die.
We had been reaching a moment where we had felt like we were pushing so hard, and especially in our country, we've just been gaslit and slapped in the face over and over again, and I was just like, man, Virginia, you know, something's got to give, and I can imagine that she's felt that so many times throughout her process and her fight for justice, and so I feel that, yes, this was a win, and you get so little in these circumstances, so we celebrate every single win.
When you say gaslit and slapped in the face, what do you mean by those comments?
Our country, our government, our president, our Department of Justice, our Speaker of the House has consistently gaslit survivors, called it a hoax. Mike Johnson said, oh, well, only 20 survivors showed up on the steps of Washington, D.C. to make sure that their voices were heard. Only 20? One is one too many.
The King is setting a roadmap. He's setting a precedent to the rest of the world to say, I do stand with survivors. I am going to hold even my brother to account. But it's still not enough in the sense that he's still walking around a free man. I mean, let's not be naive that he's not going to be living on the side of the road here. He's still in a very, let's say, cush spot where he should be investigated. Let's put it that way. And I think that our government, to Amanda's point, is safeguarding these documents. They have it locked away in this little Pandora's box of people that are implicated, and we need to fully investigate them because Prince Andrew is just one of many that need to be investigated thoroughly. And so I think the King should put pressure on our government. He should put pressure on President Trump. He should tell President Trump verbatim, President Trump, put your big boy pants on and let's get these Epstein files released.
The King's decision has made headlines in the US. James Matthews has the details from Washington, D.C.
Right. Before we dive into what could be one of the most significant requests for royal accountability in living memory, hit that subscribe button and ring the notifications bell because UK Informate is bringing you the story that challenges the monarchy to prove its sympathy for survivors is more than just carefully worded palace statements, and you absolutely cannot miss what happens next. So King Charles has stripped his brother Andrew of his titles, evicted him from Royal Lodge, and released a statement expressing sympathy for victims and survivors of abuse. That is historic. That is unprecedented. That represents institutional accountability in ways the monarchy has avoided for centuries. But Sky Roberts, brother of the late Virginia Giuffre who accused Andrew of sexual assault, is essentially saying, brilliant start. Now let us take this further. He has called for a meeting with King Charles himself, not for a photo opportunity or symbolic gesture, but to tell his sister's story directly and ask the monarch to use his considerable influence to bring more information about Jeffrey Epstein's inner circle to light. And honestly, that is a challenge the palace cannot ignore without revealing that their sympathy for survivors is performative rather than genuine. Let us be absolutely clear about what Sky Roberts is proposing here. He told CNN that if King Charles asked him to meet, he would be in London tomorrow. Not next week. Not when schedules permit. Tomorrow. That immediacy demonstrates how serious this request is and how ready the Giuffre family is to engage with the institution that protected Andrew for years. Roberts said it is important for the monarchy to be listening not to perpetrators, but to the survivors themselves. That is a direct challenge to decades of palace behavior where protecting royal family members took priority over hearing victims. He is asking Charles to fundamentally shift institutional priorities by centering survivors' voices rather than managing scandals from a distance through carefully calibrated statements. What makes this request particularly powerful is the timing. It comes immediately after Charles took the extraordinary decision to cast his brother out of the monarchy amid renewed public fury over Andrew's ties to Epstein. Roberts acknowledged this, saying we are actually getting some acknowledgement from the king and saying he stands with survivors. That is genuine recognition of Charles's actions, which many people thought would never happen. But Roberts is not stopping there. He is saying, appreciation is nice, but let us move beyond acknowledgement into action. Let us take it to the next step, a full investigation that brings more information to light and holds everyone connected to Epstein accountable. And here is where Roberts makes an absolutely brilliant point. He notes that King Charles's response has been more positive than that of United States authorities. Think about that for a moment. The British monarchy, an institution famous for closing ranks and protecting its own, has acted more decisively than American law enforcement agencies investigating crimes that largely occurred on American soil. That is simultaneously impressive regarding Charles's willingness to act and absolutely damning regarding American institutional failures. Roberts is using this comparison strategically, praising Charles while simultaneously challenging him to go further and use royal influence to expedite investigations that American authorities have apparently stalled or deprioritized. Buckingham Palace declined to comment when asked about the possibility of meeting with the Giuffre family, which is telling in itself. They are not outright refusing, but they are not confirming either. That suggests internal palace discussions about whether such a meeting would be appropriate, helpful, or strategically wise. From the palace perspective, meeting with the Giuffre family could open doors to requests for information or actions the monarchy cannot or will not provide. But refusing to meet after releasing statements expressing sympathy for survivors would reveal those statements as hollow public relations rather than genuine institutional commitment. The statement Buckingham Palace released when stripping Andrew's title said their majesties wish to make clear that their thoughts and utmost sympathies have been, and will remain with, the victims and survivors of any and all forms of abuse. Roberts is essentially calling that statement and asking the palace to prove it through action. Thoughts and sympathies are lovely, but what do they actually mean practically? Will Charles meet with survivors? Will he use royal influence to push for fuller investigations? Will he support efforts to identify and prosecute other Epstein associates? Those are the questions Roberts is forcing the palace to confront. Virginia Giuffre died by suicide earlier this year, never witnessing the accountability she fought for her entire adult life. In her posthumous memoir, she wrote about being brutally beaten and raped by an unidentified prime minister and lent out to scores of wealthy, powerful people by Epstein and his circle. Those allegations suggest Andrew was far from the only powerful person involved in Epstein's crimes. Roberts believes British police and authorities likely have information about other perpetrators that could be brought to light, and he is asking King Charles to use royal influence to make that happen. That is not a small request. That is asking the monarch to potentially expose other powerful people, possibly including individuals with connections to the British establishment, aristocracy, or even the royal family itself. Roberts also made clear that stripping Andrew's titles is not enough. He wants Andrew's status as eighth in line to the throne removed as well, even though that would require an act of parliament. He said the United Kingdom should find another loophole, and that who cares if it takes a little bit more time. Then do it. That statement perfectly captures survivor frustration with legal and constitutional excuses for incomplete accountability. From Roberts's perspective, if the monarchy was creative enough to find ways to strip title through royal warrants, they can be creative enough to remove Andrew from the line of succession entirely. The fact that it is constitutionally complicated is not an acceptable reason to leave him technically eligible for the throne. The Giuffre family has called for a full investigation, and, if Andrew is implicated in any crime, prosecution to the fullest extent of the law. That demand goes beyond what Charles has done so far. Stripping titles is symbolic accountability. Prosecution is legal accountability. The family wants both, and they are asking Charles to support investigations that could lead to criminal charges, not just institutional consequences. What makes this situation so fascinating is that it puts Charles in an impossible position. If he meets with the Giuffre family, he risks being asked to support investigations that could expose more royal connections to Epstein or implicate other powerful British figures. If he refuses to meet after expressing sympathy, he reveals that sympathy as performative. If he meets but offers nothing substantive, he faces accusations of empty gestures. There is no easy path forward that satisfies everyone, which is exactly why Roberts' request is so strategically brilliant. Thanks ever so much for watching, everyone. We will catch you in the next one.